Hello, welcome to The Conversation on News Central Television. This is the program where we bring you up to speed with all the political happenings on the African continent. I am Benga Aboroa.
And I am Marita Omodia. Today on The Conversation, we will be looking at Nigerian Senate, who just approved the Niger Delta Development Commission's NDDC 2023 budget worth 876 billion naira.
Later on the show, we will discuss the clash between the factional chairman of the Labour Party, Lamidi Apapa, and the Director General of the P2B Presidential Council, Akin Oshuntokin, at the appeal court earlier today.
Definitely love the developments. We've been seeing the adjournment of the Election Petition Tribunal due to the February 25 elections, and a lot of candidates. We see the Labour Party candidate and also other candidates contesting the February 25 elections. Meanwhile, May 29 is just around the corner. I think has been adjourned again till Saturday, I believe, or Monday. That's for this election.
Presidential election
yes.
Petition Tribunal, yes. But the inauguration will go ahead as planned, and we're also looking forward to the new government. But it's interesting that President Muhammadu Buhari signed a bill into law that the new government must name, and governors must name the commissioners, I believe, in the first 60 days. So there's a lot to be desired, and we hope the new administration gets on the ground and starts running.
Definitely, yes. We do hope so. Meanwhile, the Senate approved, the budget for the NDDC. I was just saying billions and millions of naira for the NDDC. And the major question a lot of people, especially those from the Niger Delta area, are saying is, will this actually show in the region? Because we're still seeing underdevelopment in major parts.
You are from the Niger Delta area?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Is there development where you are?
Minimal development.
Okay,
we still need more.
We'll talk about the reasons, and we'll get to the crux of the matter. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it, not just for the sake of our viewers, but also for your sake.
Binga, I don't understand. We're all Nigerians here.
I'd like development to come to your side, that's why. Now, on Tuesday, Nigeria's Senate approved the Niger Delta Development Commission's NDDC 2023 budget worth 876 billion naira. Additionally, 451 million was allocated for aids of 12 NDDC board members. The budget also includes 576 million for the office of the chairman, Lauretta Onochie, for the breakdown of 156 million for personnel costs, 312 million for overhead, and 108 million for internal capital. For the managing director's office, 546.597 million was designated for personnel costs, 747.500 million for overhead costs, and 163 million for internal capital. The overall budget of the commission includes 34.2 billion for personnel expenditures, 17 billion for overhead expenditure, 3.7 billion for internal capital, 490 billion for development projects, and 330 billion for the federal government's intervention in the Niger Delta.
President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, emphasized the urgency of the process to prevent further suffering for the people in the region. The NDDC, founded by the federal government in the year 2000, aimed to expedite infrastructure progress in the Niger Delta region. This decision came after years of protests by the local residents who were deeply frustrated by the lack of benefits from hosting the major crude oil resources, accounting for approximately 90% of public revenues. Their grievances included the destruction of their land and water sources, as well as the disruption of their farming and fishing livelihoods. Now, join us for this conversation. We have Basil Abia, a research associate in Kwakul Research. We also have Oladipo Olalekon, Efficient, is a political analyst. Gentlemen, welcome to the conversation.
No, thank you so much for having me here on the show. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, I'm going to begin with you, Basil. I mean, looking at the budget so far, how has the NDDC fared in its role to contribute to the development and welfare of the people in the Niger Delta region? That was their primary responsibility for this commission. How have they fared?
I will be very honest with everyone here. They have been poor. They have fared poorly since they were established in 2000. Over 23 years since they were established, I think they failed to decentralized dividends of good governance, and especially entrenching development in that very important region of Nigeria. When you are I will permit me to use some political science speak, when you are a special purpose entity for entrenching development to a particular region in Nigeria that has been mired by violence, ecological injustice, and then of course a misappropriation and misallocation of the resourcing and the resources that are generated by the virtue of the very rich oil production activities that have happened there since 1958. And there is always a corruption cloak that is hanging around you as the special purpose entity. Then something is not right. And that's just the honest truth about it. For me, I would be honest with you again. I do not think that is how to entrench and spread development in Nigeria. I think that perspective is very antiquated. However, knowing the institutional context of development in Nigeria, whenever there is there's an elite consensus whenever there's political will to be able to do something, which we saw in 1999 when the democratic dispensation had started and President Olusegun Obasanjo had taken office. There was a prioritization of the Niger Delta because we needed to get our oil production numbers up. We also needed to ensure that all the cries of ecological injustices were, sort of answered in that sense. And then also to see true development come to a region that has brought as much wealth as possible to Nigeria. So in that context, that prioritization ensured that we had to create an agency and that the NDDC was created obviously to do just that, to entrench development in the Niger Delta. And in the last 23 years, if you take a trip to a vast majority of the parts that we now refer to as the Niger Delta, misdevelopment. In fact, development is nothing to write home about. Basic infrastructure, for instance, is non-existent. People who were traditional fishermen cannot engage in those activities due to the ecological devastation that's been caused by virtue of the oil production activities in those regions. So my rating of the NDC would definitely be an F, and a major reason for that is obviously the opacity in the financial reporting, the financial management of all of the resources that NDDC has had over the years, also the corruption cases, and then of course the very, very extreme misgovernance that the individuals who have managed that particular agency have failed in that regard.
Thank you, Basil. I'd like to bring Olalekan into the conversation. Now, Olalekan, has there been any key projects or initiatives, landmark projects by the NDDC in the Niger Delta region to justify this humongous budget? And what are your thoughts on this recently approved budget?
All right. Thank you so much once again to be on your show. It's indeed a pleasure. If I might start with your questions. As we speak now, we have about 3,751 incomplete, abandoned or cancelled projects. And don't take my word for it. You can just try to go to the site of nddc.gov.ng. About 3,751 incomplete, abandoned or cancelled projects. Now, what does it explain to us? It takes us to us that there is a lot of management in the administrations of NDDC regarding executing of projects and the likes. And if I want to take us back, I know for the benefit of those of Nigerians that might be watching us, I know that the mantra of please off your mic, you remember when the mantra of please off your mic started at the particular Senate hearing when Senator Godswill Akpabio was, I think it's in 2020, was trying to defend a budget of NDDC. We know what when it alleged that majority of members of the National Assembly, are taking one project or the other which is didn't execute to justify that. And also, we remember a certain issue of Professor Ponde when all of a sudden just collapsed in the process of trying to ask him to account for one or two figures regarding projects and others. It's just to tell you that it is very hard for you to say you want to pinpoint, put your hands on a legitimate project. I'm sure that the MD, of course, might say one or two projects have been executed which are not commissioned. But if you try to look at how much NDDC has collected between 2008, when late President Musawa Yar'Adua created Ministry of Niger Delta, which now merged NDDC as a parastatus under it, you will discover that the amount that's been received vis-a-vis the project we see on ground cannot correlate. And this is the reasons why we see that institutionalized corruptions as a base in Nigeria. I listened to your report before I come online. Beautiful analysis about how the Senate went ahead to approve this amount of work. But if you want to go from the beginning, you discover that even NDDC, presented about a budget of 2.2 trillion naira to the National Assembly. 2.2 trillion naira to the National Assembly. Lagos State, that happened to be the largest state in sub-Saharan Africa, the budget of Lagos State, as at the last time, was around 1.7 trillion plus or minus. Now you begin to ask yourself, what is actually going on in this? I mean, that there's a lot of cash to be thrown around. I tried to look at the breakdown analysis of the approved, the approved budget that was approved for National Assembly, a certain 451 million to pay 12 aides of the board members. I want to ask, which kind of work are they doing? And not only that, another close about 600 million was approved to the Office of Managing Director. The Office of the Chairman.
Olalekan, if we're sitting here and we find these figures ridiculous and outrageous, why did the Senate approve this sort of budget?
It still takes us down to, what is going on is more or less like a cartel, if I can use that word. That is a strong, because you will want to start that from what we saw in 2020, from that hearing, a Senator Akpabio came out in the open and said some members of the National Assembly are part of the process. And up to this moment, we've not seen anybody that takes Senator Akpabio to court. In fact, as we speak now, it's possible that Senator Akpabio might be the next Senate president in the coming Senate. That tells you the level at which, that's why I try to use cartel, or is a very strong, it still takes us back to the point, the institutionalized corruption has been so institutionalized in Nigeria that it is very difficult for us to actually pinpoint what the problem is. It's just so unfortunate. As we speak now, according to the report of NECA, something around January, they said by June, Nigeria debt will amount to about 77 trillion. Yeah. And you ask yourself, where are this money? We just keep borrowing money. And these are part of places that is just sucking money. About 846 billion, or 876 billion was approved to NDDC. In the end, nothing. I tried to look at this figure. There is nothing like approved, a capital project. These are just running cost expenditure. In fact, I saw almost about 1.1 billion for corporate affairs department of the same NDDC. These are outrageous. It's outrageous. But you ask, like what you said, these are not. These are things that ordinary man cannot just try to, put in this figure. It's just a sad indication of where we are as a country, and it's just so unfortunate that the same thing will continue to repeat itself until Nigerians and we have leaders that are ready, to change things for Nigeria.
Thank you so much, Olalekan, and thank you so much for taking us back to 2 years ago. And that was a very serious issue, I must say, in Nigeria. Just like you rightly pointed out, it was a fainting spree and lots of drama going on at the Senate. For you, Basil, I mean, Olalekan is pointing out managerial issues. And earlier on, you scored the NDDCF in its portfolio to bring about development in the Niger Delta region. What do you think are some of the challenges and issues faced by the Niger Delta Development Commission in fulfilling these objectives? Is it purely managerial? Is it about funds? Are they getting the funds? What exactly are the issues that we are dealing with here?
I think the first particular issue is that of institutional capacity. This is a general problem, by the way. This is a general bureaucratic problem across board, federal levels, state level, and of course, local level. We have seen in the last 23 years, getting to 24 years, where our key MDAs, and even the not so key MDAs, for those in the audience, MDAs is basically a Nigerian acronym that means ministries, departments, and agencies. So in that sense, even though NDDC is a development commission, it's also in the QUIP, an agency. And they have demonstrated the failure to entrench institutional capacity in basically ensuring that they see through particular projects that they've earmarked for a particular budget year. And we have noted that in the failures of NDDC over the last 22 years. We know, of course, that prebendalism and corruption is endemic in all of the operations. This is a general Nigerian trait as well. And so when I was even gauging and rating NDDC's performance over the last 23 years, why I put an F was largely because they were bedeviled by a lot of this prebendalism. Now, I've listed institutional capacity or a lack of it. I've also listed corruption or endemic corruption in that sense. I also think that political will is another constraint for NDDC in delivering its own development targets for the Niger Delta. And this is because there are certain forces outside of the NDDC that are always hawking over, mostly members of Nigeria's political elite who happen to come from the Niger Delta. I would like to think of the NDDC as another, I would say, corruption conduit pipe, where if you have access to a certain number of your acolytes who join as board members or join as executive directors, you also have access, of course, to more scheming ways to be able to extract monies from the NDDC to private pockets. And we have seen the connections between Nigeria's political elite with the senior officers or the senior management officers of the NDDC. So to summarize my points, a lack of institutional capacity is a major constraint to a major challenge. Endemic corruption is another challenge. And then, of course, the last and very powerful challenge is the hovering of Nigeria's political elite. I think these three challenges are bedeviling any of NDDC's chances to exerting some form of very good governance and, of course, delivering on their promise to entrench development throughout the Niger Delta.
Thank you, Basil. Now, Olale coefficient, over time, the NDDC has been described, and as we've heard on this show, as an aberration, a monumental waste of public funds and a cesspool of corruption, also a conduit of corruption. Do you share the same sentiment? And some have suggested, just scrap this agency, that the Niger Delta states already get a derivation fund, a 13% derivation fund. The money that goes into this venture called the NDDC should be channeled towards the states for better use of resources. Because like you said, when you looked at the line items, it was payment of salaries and overhead costs and nothing really tangible to show how the NDDC is changing the lives of the people in the Niger Delta. So what's your take on this?
Well, I believe the problem we have, scrapping of NDDC is not the solution, because the intentions at the onset is to better the life of Nigerians in that region. And you want to tell me that it was a well thought out opinion. But I think the problem we have is how to get capable hands, Nigerians who can actually manage NDDC the way it's supposed to be managed. Because I don't belong to the school of thought that will believe that there are no materials in Nigeria that can actually paddle the king of governance, parastatals. But I think it's just we need people of capacity that can actually put things in place, but not this kind of set of management or boards like my colleagues rightly said. We need a government right from the top, even to the indigenous of Niger Delta. They have to decide what they want from them, by themselves. Because you see, most of this money that you see that is flying around, both of us know these are bank ends money. Because you cannot tell me you awarded about up to $500 million for chairman. To do what? What is it doing? But we know these are money that are meant to settle boys in the creek, some set of militants to make sure they make peace and all these things just to create caucus. Money that you cannot actually, bring in through the normal books. But in the end, Niger Deltas need to decide what they actually want. Because when you look at it, these are just a little, if you try to put everything in totality, with all the money that has been pumped into NDDC, it is just this certain cycle, maybe like 10% or 20% of the elite that is trying to corner all the funds that have been pumped into Niger Delta, but just take a little of this money, just share it around for the boys in the street and do one or two few projects, and people think, okay, the commission is doing enough. So I don't believe that scrapping NDDC is the solution, but from Niger Delta states, they have to be sincere, and it starts from the governors of the affected states, from the members of the National Assembly of the affected states, stakeholders. They need to come to reality, and is this how we want? Because you see, it's a good political, you cannot become the chairman of NDDC today if you are not the friend of the president. And for you to become the friend of the president, that means you will be part of the campaign processes and some other things. So I think it's just something, if you want to tell ourselves the truth, they need to decide what they want for them. And it's not only synonymous to NDDC, this is a natural occurrence of what you see in most of the sectors for starters in Nigeria. Sadly, it's unfortunate, but we have to, do with what we have. But Niger Deltas need to come to the table to know that, to think that is this I want to be going, because by the 876 billion naira, it's a lot. If this money is well managed and properly spent, it will do a lot. But we both know that maybe 20% of that money is what will go in. So they need to decide what they want in themselves, and make either with a conference or do a meetings, and because without that, because whatever is going to happen, the big man in Abuja will still decide who sits at the board and who become sit at the end of party at the NDDC.
Definitely, I will agree with you. 876 billion naira. Basil, definitely, we're coming to you. Do you also feel that it should be scrapped? And what manner of transparency, accountability projects has been done to make sure that the NDDC is more accountable? So, Basil, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think my opinion is different. I want the NDDC scrapped. If anyone in the audience, of course, you guys in the studio, if you've read the Onochie report of 2012, basically that report asked the current president, the then president of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, to scrap or merge at least over 200 MDAs out of the existing 500 plus MDAs that were in Nigeria, because of the crowded bureaucratic space, and also the fact that it was straining Nigeria's public treasuries. The financing that's involved with paying overhead costs, personnel costs, and the rest. Olalekan rightly did justice to the numbers with NDDC. If you look at the numbers, we are currently 96% of our revenues are used now to service all of our debts. That's a report from World Bank that just popped out last month. For 2022, that's very dangerous. I will use a personalized example. Imagine 96% of all my earnings every single year goes to servicing all of my debt. That's financial recklessness, and that's exactly what Nigeria is doing right now. There's a chance that we might default on our debt in 2-3 years. There's a chance that we might get a haircut, very similar to the Ghanaian example. I think that by the time we reach that level, that strenuous level, I hope that we don't have to reach that strenuous level to take some of the steps. Then we're going to have to go back to the 2012 Onochie report, where we're going to start scrapping agencies that, to be honest, just counteract what certain ministries do. I do not think that we need a Ministry of Niger Delta first. I do not think that we need a Regional Development Commission. And I'll say this. If you have noticed, in the last 6 years, we've had the Northeast Development Commission signed on. Yeah. It's now established. They're now carrying on with their spendings. I saw the budget line for Nigeria's budget for 2023. The NEDC are taking a decent chunk, just like the NDDC. I've also heard and read cries for other regions to have their own development commissions, particularly the Northwest, because of the banditry that has obviously devastated that particular geopolitical region in Nigeria. Now, what happens when we wake up one morning and every single geopolitical zone has a commission? That starts a precedent that is not really healthy for our fiscal health. So I think that and this is my prediction, in 2-3 years when we're going to have serious strains on our public treasuries due to the financial recklessness we've carried out in the last 8 years, we'll now have to make the hard decision of scrapping a lot of this. And I think that the NDDC will also fall in line. Now, here are my reasons for why we don't need the NDDC to entrench development. I try to look at development from two perspectives, a public-led development drive and a private-led development drive. I think, and I'm of the school of thought, that a public-led development drive should be where policy frameworks are set aside to enable market forces carry out what they normally do, creating private markets, creating jobs, building industries, ensuring economic productivity, and of course that is translating to economic growth.
But
as we all know, economic growth is...
Sorry to interrupt you, Basil, but you need the government to lay down the infrastructure and put these things down. You remember what happened in Germany post-Second World War, the Marshall Plan. That's what was seen with the Northeast Development Commission and also the Niger Delta Development Commission. These things are brilliant on paper, but it's execution, and we've seen poor execution. So, I mean, how long are we going to keep having Senate committee hearings and nothing comes out of it? So I kind of agree with you there when you say it should be scrapped. But is there, but that's an extreme measure.
Yeah.
It's taking out the baby in the bathwater. Are there any other ways to look at this issue?
You know, so the reason why I'm asking for a scrap is not because I want things to just, you know, be scrapped. No, there's an intentionality behind that thinking. The first intentionality is that we already have the Ministry of Justice, we already have the Ministry of Environment, and we have the Ministry of Niger Delta. So even if we don't scrap the Ministry of Niger Delta, there are certain ministries that are responsible for catering for a lot of these concerns from the Niger Delta. The major concern from the Niger Delta is that over the last 60 years, they have contributed a vast majority to our wealth, our national wealth, and they've had little to show for it, right? Secondly, there's ecological injustice that has been meted on their communities. There's ecological devastation. These 2 points cannot be disputed. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Now, how do you cater for those problems? You don't cater for those problems setting up a special purpose entity to say, oh, we're going to entrench development. What now is the job of a River State government, for instance, or an Akwa Ibom State government? When NDDC, NDDC are constructing roads, they're building culverts, the same thing that states are supposed to do. Do you get, there's a mix-up in that sense. So if you set up a certain Niger Delta centric policy and then bring other levels of government onto the table, the state governments and the local governments as well, and there is a strategic thinking, a long-term thinking saying, this is what we want to get out of the Niger Delta in the next 20 years. That's a better way. I mean, I hate to change our narrative to the dollar, but that 876 billion naira is actually 1.8 billion. 1.8 billion using the Lekki seaport as an example. 1.8 billion can give you a Lekki seaport in Akwa Ibom. It can give you the Ibaka deep seaport. It can create 30,000 direct jobs in 2 years off that seaport. It can create a new city surrounding that seaport where gas power plants, industrial zones are created, special economic zones are created, feeding off that massive deep seaport, which is exactly what that region needs right now for growth. And I also believe in the multiplier effects. The multiplier effects of certain projects like this that are led by the private sector, with financing generally coming from the public purse, does a better job than, say, spending over $5 billion in the last 24 years than SPE, where people are just basically turning into a conduit pipe to embezzle as much money as possible. I know that this is a little too extreme with the Nigerian school of thought, but it's high time we start thinking that way, because you look at the inflation numbers, you look at our debt service to GDP ratio, you look at how public financing is hard to come by. You look at all of these and you put them on the table. There's a crisis ahead. We need to start thinking in a proactive manner rather than react.
All right.
Whether we like it or not, the reaction would be that we'll have to scrap at the end of the day.
Okay, Olaleko, there's an issue. We're seeing on the development in Niger Delta region. And then we have this commission, we have this affairs that was created. But unfortunately, we're seeing corruption. And now we're also seeing that there was also a governing board that was created. I mean, the chairperson of Lauretta Onochie. Do you also believe that there is a problem of duplicate functions going on? And what is your take on the role of the Nigerian Senate and other governmental bodies in overseeing the activities of the Niger Delta Development Commission?
Well, you see, I understand what Basi is trying to say. In a Senate environment, it's a beautiful masterpiece. But we must understand that Nigeria, there's always a political factor to everything. If today we said that we want to scrap NDDC, I told you, if there's another to scrap NDDC today, before tomorrow noon, you will hear another set of insurgents springing up, creating security challenges in that region, which will be more problematic than the solution we are trying to find. You see, we need to understand that this is Nigeria. And you see, we have to come to that fact. This is not United States. This is not United Kingdom. This is Nigeria. Political decisions always take center stage in everything that we do. I will still maintain my position is that scrapping the NDDC is not a solution, because it will be like you killing an ant with an hammer, because there's going to be a lot of meat that will be added to it in a country where there is a divergent opinion. Some section of Nigeria are saying that they've been marginalized, they've not faced presidency, they are the one, they've not, these are regions that are saying that despite the fact of the money, financial power they give us as a nation, they are not having that. They've been having the taste of that leadership like they want. And now these are the commissions that are to a large extent, they have a majority of their sons and daughters feel 90% or 95% feel that commission. You now want to scrap it. I don't think that's the right way to go.
It will be a very tough political decision to make indeed. I'd like to say a big thank you to you, gentlemen. Basil Abia Research Associate, Quackle Research, joining live from Abuja, and Oladipo Olaleko, efficient political analyst. We do appreciate your insights on this subject. Thanks for your time and contribution.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.